a series on fun, empowering, inspiring women in the Bible. And the reason why I particularly am looking at these three women today in particular, that's Abigail, Michael, and Bathsheba, is that these are women I know that I have personally, I would say, misunderstood or didn't really have a knowledge of until I went back into the text. So normally on this channel we do sermons, right, of inspiration. But as of late, we have been praying and really asking God to guide our hearts. So through that guidance, we have found that most of all, what we notice is that a lot of people don't know the liturgy, the text in and of itself, the stories of people in and of themselves. And I think the hardest thing of me, I would consider myself, in all honesty, a womanist, is understanding that this text, this Bible, is not an example of how you should be for a woman per se. We could argue about whether Proverbs 31 women on another day on whether or not we should be that woman, but that each woman and actually each individual person inside of this text is a reminder for you of God's work with you and God's work in you, if that makes sense. What does that mean? That means that today, focusing on Abigail, I have no relation whatsoever to Abigail. I have nothing in common with her, and that's okay because I can still be inspired with her, understand her journey, the same way I would understand a friend's journey that they would personally be on. So right now, before I even start, I want to set a scene of who Abigail is and what we're kind of in right now. So we're going to find the story of Abigail in 1 Samuel 25. It's a wonderful, 1 Samuel, again, one of my favorite books of all time in the Bible, right? With that being said, we are right on the cusp of having David. If you don't know who David is, we will be doing another series soon about who David is in and of himself, so stay tuned. But we are on the scene of David mourning over Saul. So David is already at a place of heightened emotions when we are going into this storyline. And I would like to keep that in mind for what we're about to read. I want to say that as a Christian, I am a complete understanding on how people kind of are afraid of going into the text or confused about going into the text, because I've experienced the same thing probably you've experienced. But what I want to reassure you is that this is a primary example of God working with someone who's at the end of their ropes, a woman who is struggling and finds the answer by her wisdom, her grace, her intelligence, and her beauty. So let's get started. So if you have your Bibles, I am going to be with the amplified version of the Bible. Love it, great preaching Bible, but grab whatever text that you can find on this story. Translations from what I've researched don't vary too much, so it's going to be okay this time around. So let's jump on in. And I'm reading 1 Samuel 25 starting at 2. Now there was a man in Moab whose business and possessions were in Carmel, and the man was very rich. He had 3,000 sheep and thousands goats, and he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. Now the man's name was Nabal, and his wife's name was Abigail. She was intelligent and beautiful in appearance, but the man was harsh and evil in his dealings because he was a Calebite. A little bit of backstory right where we're going into, right? We are setting a scene of there is a husband and wife dynamic. The man pictured here is not a very supportive and caring husband to his wife. At the same time, if you are already feeling like, ugh, like as a woman, like, why do we have to mention that she's beautiful? This is a common, if a writer found you attractive, they're going to mention it. That is the same for David. That is the same for Absalom. Also the same for Abigail. If you are pretty or someone finds you attractive in the text, I promise you, no matter what gender you are, they're going to mention it, whether you like it or not. So let's jump right back in. David heard in the wilderness that Nabal was shearing his sheep. So David sent 10 young men, and David said to the young men, "Go up to Carmel and go to Nabal and greet him in my name." Right on this couple of pages, no. "And this is what you shall say. Have a long life. Peace be to you, and peace be to your house, and peace to all that you have. Now I have heard that you have shearers. Now your shepherds have been with us, and we have not harmed them, nor were they missing anything all the time they were in Carmel. Ask your young men, and they will tell you. Therefore, let my young men find favor in your sight and be well treated. For we have come on a good festive day. Please give whatever you find at hand to your servants and to your son David. So what scene are we in now, right? This can be a little confusing, especially if we're just popping into the text, which a lot of people do from time to time, right? So David has been taken care of. Basically, instead of the servants, see them as workers in like modern terminology to a certain extent. And David has been taking care of Nabal's workers, shepherds, while they're in the location, right? Now David, which is unexpected, is in turn saying, hey, peace be unto your house, Nabal, shalom, blessings onto your household. We have taken care of your workers. They've had anything while we've been here. Can you please return the favor that we have done for you? Let's get into this reaction, however. When David's young men came, they spoke to Nabal according to all these words in the name of David. Then they waited. But Nabal answered David's servants and said, who is David, and who is the son of Jesse? There are many servants today, each of whom is breaking away from their master. So automatically what we're seeing right now is also a major diss by Nabal, talking about David's servants, workers, just basically lying and also insulting David as a whole. Because he asks, who is Jesse? Who is even David in and of himself, right? So when we dive back in. So should I take my bread, my water, and my meat that I have slaughtered for my shearers and give it to men, when I do not know where they are from? So David's young men made their way back and returned, and they came and told him everything that was said to them by Nabal. David said to his men, each man put on your sword. So each man put on his sword. David also put on his sword, and about 400 men went up behind David, while 200 stayed back with the provisions and supplies. But one of Nabal's young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, listen, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to bless our master. He shouted at them in contempt. But David's men were very good to us, and we were not harmed or treated badly, nor did we miss anything as long as we were with them when we were in the fields. They were a wall of protection to us both night and day, all the time that we were with them, tending the sheep. I want to pause again because this is also another important note. Again, I think a lot of women can get caught up in just, or even me personally, before when I really didn't get into this text of saying like, like, we haven't even gotten to Abigail until this point. But keep in mind that Abigail is highlighted understanding that there is a young man who's coming at her in full force and saying, hey, this right here, this is going to be an issue, and I know that I cannot go to Nabal about this because he will not listen, and you are the person that can basically save all of our lives, right? So now then, know this and consider what you should do. For evil is already planned against our master and against all his household. But he is such a worthless and wicked man that one cannot speak reasonably to him. So now we're about to jump into Abigail interceding because there's still not a trust in Nabal that is even possible, right? Then Abigail hurried and took 200 loaves of bread, 2 jugs of wine, 5 sheep already prepared for roasting, 5 measures of roasted grain, 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 cakes of figs, and loaded them on donkeys. She said to her young men, go on ahead of me. Behold, I am coming after you. But she did not tell her husband Nabal. She couldn't tell her husband Nabal. Let's get that very clear. It happened that as she was riding on her donkey and coming down by way of the hidden part of the mountain, that suddenly David and his men were coming down toward her, and she met them. Now David had said, surely in vain I have protected and guarded all that this man has in the wilderness, so that nothing was missing of all that belonged to him, and he has repaid me evil for good. May God do so to the enemies of David, and more also, if by morning I leave alive even one male of any who belong to him. So what we're seeing right now is something that I would say we can never know what someone's emotional state is, but we can know who David is. And if you go into 1 Samuel, you should know that David is a full-time warrior, soon to be king of all of Israel, and that David is someone who has killed and is very comfortable slaughtering not only men, women, children, the goats, the sheep, everyone. And I do mean everyone. So the scene that Abigail is going into, what she is rushing into right now, which she is fully aware of, is that David has the capability to not only take everyone in her household's life, but her life as well. Kneeling at his feet, she said, "My Lord, let the blame and guilt be on me alone, and please let your maidservant speak to you and listen to the word of your maidservant." Again, let's also keep in mind the wording. We're just saying maidservant, servants. We're talking about cultural systems of what these words mean. Do not take it for the modern day that it is. With that in mind, understand the power that Abigail holds in and of herself and the respect that is connected to her, right? Because we're looking at a woman who's literally on her knees, possibly at any moment could be killed by David, which for him would be in his right, according to David's own eyes. And she is taking the life of everyone involved into her hands at this exact moment. "So now, my Lord, as the Lord lives, as your soul lives, since the Lord has prevented you from shedding blood and from avenging yourself by your own hand, now then let your enemies and those who seek to do evil to my Lord be as self-destructive as Nabal. Now this gift which your maidservant has brought my Lord, let it be given to the young men who accompany and follow my Lord. Please forgive the transgressions of your maidservant, for the Lord will certainly make my Lord a secure and enduring house, because my Lord is fighting the battles of the Lord, and evil will not be found in you all your days. Should anyone rise up to pursue you and to seek your life, then the life of my Lord will be bound in the precious bundle of the living with the Lord your God. But the lives of your enemies, those he will hurl out from the center of a sling. And it will happen when the Lord does for my Lord according to all the good that has spoken concerning you, and appoints you ruler over Israel, that this incident will not cause grief or bring trouble consciousness to my Lord, both by having shed blood without cause, or by my Lord having avenged himself. When the Lord deals well with my Lord, then remember with favor your maidservant." We are looking at a woman who is not only able to, let me explain to you how discerning and intelligent Abigail is. This is a woman who, again, is at death's door with David at any moment. And she is able to talk to him about not only blessing him, but the blessing of him being the king of Israel. She is talking to him as well as someone who's asking for forgiveness for something that she did not even do or was not a part of her discernment process. She is a person in this text who has an entire section of herself and is talking for herself, about herself, and about her own location. There's no man that's helping her intercede. There's no support system she's getting from any guys in the background corner. This is a woman who is defined in and of herself with her own strength, with her own ability, and is going against someone who, again, is going to be the king of Israel, which she will be under. But this is how this turns out. David said to Abigail, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who sent you to meet me this day. And blessed be your discretion and discernment. And blessed be you who has kept me from bloodshed this day, from avenging myself by my own hand. Nevertheless, as the Lord, the God of Israel lives, who have prevented me from harming you, if you had not come quickly to meet me, most certainly by morning light there would not have been left to Nabal so much as one male." So David accepted what she had brought to him and said to her, "Go up to your house in peace. See, I have listened to you and have granted your request." Then Abigail came to Nabal, and he was holding a feast in his house for the shearers, like the feast of a king. And Nabal's mood was joyous because he was very drunk. So she told him nothing at all until the morning light. Again, this is the desertion of Abigail. This is her saying, playing a game in which most women have to play their entire lives, is when I'm supposed to speak, how I'm supposed to speak. Again, God, there's no point right now in this that God is saying Abigail has to speak like this, Abigail has to say this. We are living in a world where women are oppressed because we are in a world of sin. And this woman is standing out and saying, I have to play this smarter, not only for myself, but for my workers, servants, both male and female alike. But in the morning, when Nabal was sober, and his wife told him these things, his heart died within him, and he became paralyzed and helpless like a stone. About 10 days later, the Lord struck Nabal, and he died. Then this moment is when you are seeing God come into play. God at no point is attacking Abigail. God, no point. We are seeing a man, Nabal, who, in actuality, his name is Fool, die out of honestly fright and fear and misunderstanding, with also the help of God, ending him. So now we have an Abigail who has lost a man who, frankly, was mean and abusive to begin with. So closing it out, when David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, Blessed be the Lord who has pleased the cause of my suffering, at the hand of Nabal, and has kept his servant from retaliating with evil. For the Lord has returned to the wickedness of Nabal on his own head. Then David sent word to Abigail, proposing to take her as a wife. When the servants of David came to Abigail at Carmel, they said to her, David sent us to him to be his wife. And she stood and bowed with her face to the ground and said, Behold, your maidservant is ready to be a maid to wash the feet of the servants of my Lord. Then Abigail quickly got up and rode on a donkey with 5 of her maidservants who attended her, and she followed the messengers of David and became his wife. Let's keep in mind something else which I think is important. When we're going back in with David also knew it was wrong to kill Nabal, but did not care and was going to do it anyway, which is also a point, if you know David's history, of how this might be a little bit of foreshadowing. Bathsheba. With that being said, right here and there, the thing that stopped him was not any one of his men, anyone else around him. The thing that stopped him was a woman who took the chance and said, no, I know what to do. I know how to handle things. I know where to go. And not only does she then do all these steps, but then is courted, not taken over, not grabbed, not completely smothered. She is asked if she would like to be the wife of David, the future king of Israel. And at Abigail's desertion and her understanding and her own wisdom, she then chooses, out of her own volition, to become David's wife. This is a woman, and this is the reason why I love the text. It's the reason why I can be a proud womanist and a Christian, is because in this, God is standing with Abigail. Even though it is not written, God is right there with Abigail, because this is a woman, again, in the ancient Near Eastern world, who is fully able and capable and has made her own decisions and has an entire speech in the middle of 1 Samuel. I pray that this reading gave you as much joy as it gave joy to me. When you have a spare moment in your day, reread 1 Samuel 25 and really get into that of how powerful and beautiful Abigail is, how much she always talks about not only Lord, small l, meaning David, but also praises God throughout her entire experience and has God's support while she's doing her long speech of endearment. Although she is on her knees, she is standing strong in her spirit and has the full backing of the Lord behind her. Have a blessed and wonderful rest of your evening, morning, afternoon, and take care.